Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman.
And I'm Paris Schutz. On the show tonight,
she's been the only queen I've ever known.
Britain mourns the death of its longest reigning monarch. A look at the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II.
A new report finds nearly 900 Illinois residents are linked to the far-right group the Oathkeepers, including law enforcement officers and military members.
We want to make sure that Chicago remains a safe haven for anybody.
A measure to ban Chicago police from cooperating with probes into abortion wins unanimous support from a key city council panel.
Sign of hope, maybe a sign of us trying to lure them here and will them here.
The Chicago Bears' next play is a move to the suburbs. We're live at tonight's community meeting in Arlington Heights.
Justin Fields looking downfield. Ryan Griffin, and he gets the touchdown.
Meanwhile, at Soldier Field, the team kicks off the new football season this weekend. Former player James Big Cat Williams joins us for a preview.
A backstage tour of the city's saltiest new music venue, the old Morton Salt Shed.
And Brandis and Paris, as you mentioned, I'm in Arlington Heights for the latest in our Chicago Tonight in Your Neighborhood series. CEO of the Bears, Ted Phillips, and other executives are set to present Arlington Heights and other Northwest suburban residents with their latest plans for the prospect of moving out here from Chicago to the burbs. We'll have the latest from that live community meeting. But for now, back to you.
Amanda, thank you. Now to some of today's top stories. After 70 years on the throne, Queen Elizabeth II has died. Thousands gathered outside of Buckingham Palace to mourn as world leaders extended their condolences to the royal family. The Queen was Britain's longest reigning monarch and saw the country through a turbulent century. She was 96 years old. Her 73-year-old son, Prince Charles, has automatically become the king. We'll have more reaction to the Queen's legacy later in the program. Chicago native and storied former CNN anchor Bernard Shaw died Wednesday of pneumonia. Shaw was the network's first chief anchor, retiring in 2001 after more than 20 years. He started his journalism career in Chicago as a radio reporter where he interviewed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Shaw recalled King telling him that, quote, "One day you'll make it. Just do some good." Shaw was 82 years old. And Chicago police could be banned from working in probes, investigations into people who travel to the city for abortions or their doctors. That's from a measure that won unanimous support of a key city panel. It's set for a final vote by the full city council on September 21st, and we'll have more on this measure later in the program as well. Up next, a live report from Arlington Heights on the Bears' big plans. Stay with us.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
Chicago Bears have made their plans known. They want to move out of Chicago and into the suburbs, to Arlington Heights to be specific. Our Amanda Vinicky and producer Acacia Hernandez have been reporting on the ground on what this move would mean for the village by talking with elected officials, business owners, and local leaders. Now we go to Amanda for the latest in our Chicago Tonight in Your Neighborhood series. Amanda.
Yeah, Paris, as you noted, the Bears made their plans known last September when they signed a purchase agreement for Arlington Park that's about 30 miles northwest of Chicago. Now, fast forward a year, and this week, the Bears made their plans further known when they released preliminary sketches of what exactly that would look like, including an enclosed stadium, but also restaurants, an office park, hotel, fitness center, and parks. Executives at Arlington Racetrack gave Chicago Tonight an exclusive look at where it'll all happen. Now, per the sketches, the field that had been serving as a practice horse racetrack that's now, frankly, beginning to be overrun with weeds and grass, that's roughly where the Bears stadium would go. Now, even that, though, is going to only take up a small portion of the 326-acre property that the family that owns the Bears is close to owning. The team has been clear that it is not at present weighing any other options like staying at Soldier Field at this point. Now, the administrative offices at Arlington Racecourse still have a tinge of horse flair, But Bears already at the front desk, ready to greet the McCaskey family. Now, the team and track owner Churchill Downs, as well as village leaders, they've been in talks for some time. But right now I'm standing outside Hersey High School, and this is where Arlington Heights will get their first chance to tell the Bears in a formal capacity what they think about all of this, with the Bears hosting a first community meeting. It is just now getting started, actually, but we did catch some folks going in.
But currently we live in Palatine, right across from the racetrack.
Yeah, right down the road.
So we're really excited and
looking
can't
forward to
wait.
the Bears.
You know, obviously a Bears fan, and I'm, you know, real interested to see what the developments are. Either way, you know, just want to just come out and show support and see what the Bears are up to.
We kind of want to know about the noise factor. And you know, the idea with the dome, I'm thinking that's going to kind of keep that in a little bit, but sometimes the dome might be open. Either way, we're happy to have them here, better than Chicago. So go Bears, Arlington Heights.
There's no shortage of opinions on this. Americans for Prosperity, that's a Koch brothers funded group, is leading the charge to block any public money from helping the Bears or other businesses that may open and be part of this endeavor. On Tuesday, that group submitted a petition to that effect to the village board. Now, State Representative Mark Walker, he is right now in a competitive race for re-election. He says when he goes door-to-door campaigning, the Bears is not a top issue that residents ask about. He says they're more concerned with things like inflation, abortion, gun control. But yes, the Bears do come up in discussions, and Walker says that as a businessman, what the Bears are trying to do makes sense versus renting Soldier Field from the city. And in order to get, however, he's willing to give some economic assets, but he says in order for that to happen, the government has to use tools at its disposal to make sure that there are things like minimum levels of affordable housing that would be part of that mixed-use development, and also making sure that the Bears meet, he says, government goals for things like minority contractors, as well as having a minority and a diverse workforce.
One thing I'd like to not do is to treat the Bears specially. The Bears are any other company that's coming here that is offering a lot of jobs and potential property tax revenue that decreases taxes. So we'll treat them like anyone else. Now, as far as residential and commercial, we do, as people move in and as people are projected to drive more and people are expected to use the site, we do typically do things. We invest in roads, we invest in sewers, we invest in electric infrastructure, just like we would for any other developer.
The challenger Jack Frett is an Afghan Army veteran. He's also a former prosecutor. He likewise says that folks are more concerned about other things. But as for the Bears, well, he is a fan, and he says he is excited about what the future may hold here for Arlington Heights.
But also, because I care about our small businesses, I really want to take the time to take a look at this proposal and see what actually it does. I think that any proposal, the final plan has to make sure that we're protecting taxpayers, that we're allowing enough funding for local police to address the thousands of people that will be coming here over the weekends, and also that we don't endanger the character of this community. You know, taxpayers in this area are already struggling with a very high cost of living. They're struggling with high tax prices and property taxes. The last thing they need is then to shoulder the burden for a billion-dollar corporation like the Bears.
Now, Brett says that, to that note, he's anti what he described as corporate welfare, but he says that investments in infrastructure are things that the entire community and not just the Bears would benefit from. Now, to that end, the Bears have said that they're not going to seek public support, as in taxpayer money, for the stadium itself, but they are going to want some financial assistance with that mixed-use project. Now, Celeste Checky has lived in Arlington Heights Historic District for about a decade, and she's actually part of a group that works to preserve those historic homes. She says that Arlington Heights is great, and she puts her trust in the mayor and trustees to make the right decisions.
There's always been change will always happen. And I know that Arlington Heights has had a lot of change. We trust our elected officials. Like, they have done a great job communicating. We know that they are looking out for our best interest, and they've kept us a part of the process, which I think has been really helpful.
One of the major lures for the Bears, as well as for the potential commercial developers that would come along with them, well, yes, there is the sheer size of the racetrack property, but also highway access, and the stadium itself would also be right on a metro stop. So it'd be an easy commute, and that is something that has been to the advantage, bringing patrons to Jimmy D's. That's a bar and restaurant just across the street from the racetrack. It's been around since the 80s, and the owner says that the Arlington racetrack did bring his establishment a whole lot of regulars throughout the years, but he knows that nothing lasts forever. He's hung up Bears signs to help to wish or lure the team to Arlington Heights.
No one's going to ever be able to fill the shoes of the late, great Mr. Duchessois and what he did over there, the legacy he left. But, you know, nothing lasts forever. Things change. It's life. I get it. But if anyone can come close to filling his shoes, it would be, you know, Papa Bear George Halas and the Chicago Bears organization. So we hope it happens. We're excited. But, you know, we know there's a lot of obstacles in the way still, so we're just trying to kind of keep cool, too.
Among those obstacles, the fear that bringing in all that Bears business and commercial properties would hurt the bustling Arlington Heights downtown. But there are plenty of business owners, including the one that we just heard from there, Pete, who say that they believe instead that this is going to be additive and that there will be spillover effect as patrons leave whatever the Bears build and come to visit their places. This, however, all is if, as the team is insisting, is the proper phrasing, if the Bears come to Arlington Heights at all. We'll have more coming up, but for now, back to you.
I don't know, maybe they're still leaving that door a crack open a bit to stay in Chicago, Amanda, but I doubt it. All right, thanks very much. We look forward to that. And now to Brandis and a look at the life of Queen Elizabeth. Brandis.
Paris, thank you. Queen Elizabeth wasn't born to be the monarch, but her, at the time, unlikely and unexpected ascension to the throne led her to become the longest-serving monarch in British history. During her reign, she was a symbol of unity and divisiveness all at once. In her 7 decades on the throne, she witnessed tectonic shifts in British society and a fair share of royal controversies. Joining us to talk about some of those controversies she faced and how she'll be remembered are Robert Buchholz, history professor at Loyola University Chicago, where he teaches the history of early modern Great Britain, the City of London, and Western civilization, and Stephen Pincus, the Thomas E. Donnelly Professor of British History and the College at the University of Chicago. Professors, thanks to you both for joining us. Professor Buchholz, let's start with you, please. What was your reaction to news of the Queen's death today?
I was on my way to class. So I had some contact with some people who wanted to talk about that, and then I was able to talk to people at the class about what had happened. I think we anticipated that this was going to happen, and probably sooner rather than later. There'd been a lot of preparation by the palace. So in that sense, it wasn't unexpected, but it's still sad. It's still the end of an era, and it's still a new day.
Right, unexpected but sad. You know, her husband died recently as well within the last couple of years, and that often happens with couples who've been together for as long as the two of them had. Professor Pincus, how will Queen Elizabeth II be remembered?
Well, that all depends on what happens next. I mean, right now, Britain is in crisis, right? I mean, it's remarkable, right? 2 days ago, there was a new prime minister named, a new prime minister, I should add, who doesn't have an electoral mandate, right? She was elected by the Tory party, but she hasn't faced a general election. We have, I mean, we're worried about inflation here. Inflation is much higher in Britain than it is here right now. Brexit has been, shall we say, unevenly rolled out. This summer, there were, miles and miles of queues trying to get across the channel, huge backups. There's Scottish devolution is on the, I mean, a Scottish referendum for independence is on the mental, and the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland is anything but stable. So it's an extremely unstable moment right now, and I think things could go in a variety of ways. That is to say, Britain could break apart. Britain could remain together with a monarchy, and Charles, the new King Charles, could become the symbol of unity. we could get a combination of the two, that Britain could break apart. Charles could become a king of England or a king of England and Wales. And I think there's also an outside possibility that if things go really badly, that there could be a revived Republican movement. I mean, I think that's the least likely outcome, but I do think it's something which is being talked about in some circles right now.
Professor Buchholz, Queen Elizabeth made a visit to Chicago back in 1959. Now, it was her only U.S. stop on her tour of the Canadian side of the Great Lakes. Tell us about the significance of that trip, and did it have any political impact then?
Well, I think it was clearly important for her it's still relatively early in the reign. It's important for her to be present for Britain's #1 ally, the United States. So I think visiting Chicago is often thought of as the quintessential American city, right? And we would have greeted her with a great deal of respect, but a relative lack of pretension, and perhaps not much in the way of bowing and scraping towards a British monarch. Everything I've read suggests that the visit was a great success, and that it's helped to strengthen ties which were already very strong. Remember that in 1959, the president is Dwight D. Eisenhower, a guy who spent a great deal of time in England in preparation for the D-Day landing. So there was already a very good relationship. There would be a very good relationship between the next administration as well and Great Britain. So that could only have helped. This, of course, speaks to this important intangible aspect of the British monarchy that my colleague, Professor Pincus, just referred to, that they, on the one hand, in a certain way, they don't matter. They don't wield the levers of power. In another way, they matter a very great deal for the symbolism of what they do, for their demeanor and their behavior and their ability to kind of get Britain through.
Well, let's get into that a little bit, Professor Pincus. How has the monarchy been, a symbol of unity, but also a source of division over the years?
Right, sure. I mean, a key moment happened 25 years ago, and we kind of remember it well, when Diana died. The royal family was not in good odor publicly, that there was all sorts of controversy, not just about the divorce between Charles and Diana, but also about the failure of the marriage of two other of Elizabeth's children that was very public. And obviously Prince Andrew's the first whiffs of sex scandals involving Prince Andrew at that time. But at that moment, that very moment where the monarchy was seen to be divisive, where there were concerns, there was again a movement, a Republican movement at that time. At that very moment, Tony Blair, a Labour, not a Tory prime minister, was concerned about he himself being Scottish, was concerned about the first moves towards Scottish devolution. And he gave a remarkable speech in which he said, we can imagine devolving more power to Scotland precisely because the monarchy would remain as a symbol of unity. And then Elizabeth rose to the occasion the next day, and for the first time after Diana's death, gave a speech unifying the country. A widely popular, widely acclaimed speech. So that was a moment where things could have gone in a variety of directions, I think, for the monarchy and also for the country.
It sounds like she, as you said, rose to the occasion. We're almost out of time. I wanted to get one more question, if I could, just about sort of what happens next and what can we expect of a King Charles reign. Professor Pincus, back to you.
Well, Bob, it looks like Bob had...
Or Professor Buchholz, if you want to take that one, we've got about 30 seconds.
It all depends on what he says and how he acts. Remember the Queen's speech about COVID. It was very heartwarming, and it sort of brought the country together, made people feel better. Can he do that? Does he have that ability?
And I would add that he's tethered right now to Liz Truss, the new prime minister as well. So I think there's a lot of stuff within his control, but I also think a lot depends on how she handles what is going to be a winter of discontent in Britain with the energy crisis looming.
A lot lies ahead for that nation. Professor Buchholz, Professor Pincus, thanks to you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for more on Queen Elizabeth's life and legacy, stay with WTTW immediately following Chicago Tonight for a PBS NewsHour special, Queen Elizabeth, A Royal Life. Up next, a new report on the wide reach of the Oathkeepers. Stay with us.
Much of the story of Latinos in America is that of entrepreneurship. About 5 million Latino-owned businesses currently exist in the U.S.
Predominantly Latino communities often bear the environmental burden of heavy industry. Residents of those communities say they have a hard time making their concerns heard.
A Chicago-based photographer has a personal understanding of immigration, and he has spent years documenting small businesses.
The forces of gentrification can make people being priced out of their neighborhoods feel powerless. But the founders of Lolita's Bodega say residents have more power than they think.
A new report from the Anti-Defamation League finds that nearly 900 Illinoisans were on the membership rolls for the far-right extremist group known as the Oathkeepers. The leader of that group is currently facing charges of seditious conspiracy for his role in January 6th. The membership list included several members of law enforcement, public safety agencies, and political office holders. And joining us now with more are Jessica Reeves, editorial director for the Anti-Defamation League's Center on Extremism, and Kevin Ruby, research director at the Chicago Project on Security and Threats, or CPOST as it is known. Thank you both for being here. Kevin, I'll start with you. Just remind our viewers who the Oathkeepers are.
Right, so the Oathkeepers are a paramilitary organization that was, or militia, that was founded in 2009 by Stuart Rhodes. It has been very active in its anti-government agenda. In 2014, the Oathkeepers basically battled with the Bureau of Land and Management at the Bundy Ranch in Nevada, and then again in 2016. Also connected with the Bundys at Malheur in Oregon. They have a very deep distrust of the government, of the deep state, and are and as you can tell from having been engaged in the Capitol insurrection, also willing to use their capabilities in a way that directly threatens democracy.
And certainly they were seemingly fans of Trump, and they operate with a lot of conspiracy theories. Jessica Reeves, this report, this leaked membership roll that the ADL got shows 38,000 members, around 900 in Illinois. What does membership entail? What does it mean that these folks were on this list?
Yeah, so we've been very careful in our discussions of this report to note that signing up for Oathkeepers membership does not necessarily mean that somebody has had a long-standing relationship with the group. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are active in their membership. It means that they at one point signed up for the Oathkeepers and paid membership dues to the national organization. So we just want to make that clear at the start. But, it also means that people were interested in what the Oathkeepers had to say and wanted to potentially participate in some of their activities. As Kevin said, a lot of that is anti-government. Some of it is violent. A number of Oathkeepers have been arrested on violent charges. So, definitely something that we were very concerned to see.
And among the 900 in Illinois and the 38,000 on that list, there are members of law enforcement agencies, there are military, ex-military service members, public safety agencies. Kevin Ruby, why is that? Are there a disproportionate amount of those folks a part of this group?
Well, I think the reason is that the Oathkeepers directly target individuals with military and law enforcement experience for recruitment. So they're very desirable. They bring not just skills with weapons, right, which is a central feature of the militia, right? They're armed. The Second Amendment and protecting the Second Amendment is sort of a core part of what they see their role as in defense against the government. But they also bring organizational skill, right? Which again we saw on in their role at the Capitol on January 6th.
And we were showing this map. I mean, the number is 883 members on these rolls in Illinois. Jessica Reeves, it seems like other states kind of had a proportionately higher amount of members. What does it say about Illinois?
Well, I mean, I would say Illinois is probably right in the middle. There are a bunch of states that had around 800 to 900 members on these rolls. And I think that just speaks to, the extent to which this is a very mainstreamed sort of group in some ways, which is scary when you think about the fact that it's in fact an extremist group. But, we see them scattered throughout the country in equal measure. And I think that really, as opposed to just being in one place, it used to be you could point to militias and you could sort of identify them by their geographic location. There were a lot of militias in Michigan, and we still see that a fair amount. But now we are seeing it in a widespread, nationalized sort of way, and that is particularly concerning. So we're not as focused on the state-by-state measurements, which certainly are important. We are focused on the fact that they are represented in every state.
Right, they're all across the country. And Kevin Ruby, there was a lot of coordination with January 6th. A lot of the websites or message boards they used have been taken down. A lot of folks, you mentioned the leader, Stuart Rhodes, charged with seditious conspiracy. So what is the status of the Oath Keepers right now? Do they have the capability to coordinate and carry out something like January 6th again?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that the Oath Keepers weren't alone at January 6th, or that January 6th wasn't specifically an Oath Keeper event. First of all, even at that level of seditious conspiracy, it involved coordination between the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. But there was also a considerable mainstream sort of everyday American component to that, right? There were 2,000 estimated individuals who made it into the Capitol, 10,000, maybe more, who were battling with police and otherwise immediately outside of the Capitol. And 31 or 2 Oath Keepers have been arrested so far for their role in January 6th. So I think to think about them as sort of singularly able to pull off something of that scale without the significant help, in this case also of the president, who brought all of these forces together, former President Trump, is unlikely. Right?
Jessica
but
Reeves,
that doesn't mean that they're not a threat, right? That doesn't mean that they can't engage or wouldn't in other ways support political violence. It is a group that has violence at its core, and so I think we have to be very, very mindful of that when we think about the future potential threat.
Jessica Reeves, what has membership ranks done since the January 6th insurrection? Has it gone up? Has it been diminished as a result of what's happened?
We have the numbers that you see on the map currently are dated, are from 2009 to 2018. So we do not have the membership numbers currently. I believe that, our researchers believe that the numbers are holding fairly steady. There is a real sort of, there's a very strong anti-government extremist sort of thread going across the country, as I mentioned before. And we have no reason to believe that these militia groups are losing any steam. We think the Oath Keepers specifically, are struggling a bit organizationally, certainly with having Stuart Rhodes, in significant legal trouble. That is having a huge impact, but that does not affect the way people view the government. And unfortunately, these seeds of anti-government extremism have been planted quite deep.
All right, it's a problem that we'll continue to follow. But for now, our thanks to Jessica Reeves and Kevin Ruby. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And still to come on Chicago Tonight, a measure to ban Chicago police from cooperating with probes into abortions wins unanimous support from a key city panel. As Arlington Heights looks to welcome the Chicago Bears, we take a deeper dive into the legacy of the proposed stadium. Quarterback Justin Fields leads the Bears this season. James Big Cat Williams joins us for a season preview. And a backstage tour of the city's saltiest new music venue, the old Morton Salt Shed. But first, some more of today's top stories. A man struck by a driver in River West has died. That's the 5th cyclist killed in Chicago this year. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office says the victim was 44-year-old Samuel Bell. A witness to the crash tells WTTW News that the man was riding north on an e-bike in the Milwaukee Avenue bike lane. The witness says the cyclist was struck by a southbound driver turning left, then collapsed onto his bike and was, quote, not responding in any way. 28 pedestrians and 4 other cyclists have been killed on Chicago streets so far in 2022, according to city data. A 90-year-old road in the south suburbs is being reconstructed for the first time in its history. The roadway on Wood Street / Ashland Avenue running through Harvey, Dixmoor, and Riverdale is getting a $94 million investment from the state. Officials broke ground on that site today.
These are communities that have suffered for very long with disinvestment. Nobody wanted to come to these communities. Nobody wanted to invest in these communities. And many will say, and I agree, that the roadways, how the roadways look, are a sign of what's to come in a community.
The road will have new curbs, lighting, modernized traffic signals, and safer railroad crossings. It's make or break time for the Chicago Sky tonight. Right now, the Sky is hosting the Connecticut Sun in the final game of its WNBA semifinal playoff series. And it's almost deja vu for the team, where last year Chicago beat Connecticut 3-1 in the semifinals. Whichever team advances will play the Las Vegas Aces for the WNBA title. That game going on right now. And now, Brandis, we toss it back to you.
Paris, thank you. Chicago police will not support out-of-state agencies looking to investigate people who travel to the city for abortions. That's if the city council approves a measure that received unanimous support from a key panel of alderpeople today. And the proposed ordinance is expected to pass the full council. WTTW News reporter Heather Sharon joins us now with more. And Heather, explain for us what this measure would do.
Well, it's modeled on the city's welcoming city ordinance that prevents city officials from cooperating with federal agents seeking to enforce laws against undocumented immigrants. In this case, the laws at issue could be passed by states that have banned abortion, other reproductive health care, and gender-affirming care from looking to Chicago for help prosecuting people seeking that care here in the city.
Now, as you said, this proposal, it's modeled on the same city rules designed to protect immigrants. Here's what Alderwoman Rosanna Rodriguez-Sanchez had to say.
I want to thank the immigrant rights movement for giving us the blueprint, for fighting so hard so that Chicago could be a welcoming city for immigrants, which now we can use to protect everybody else that is in need of refuge.
Now, Heather, this is a rare source of agreement between the mayor, Rosanna Rodriguez-Sanchez, and other progressive members of the city council. How could today's vote impact some of the political divisions at City Hall?
Well, it's an indication that the issue for abortion, at least for Democrats, is a unifying force right now. There is not a lot of love lost between the mayor and Alderman Rodriguez-Sanchez. They have clashed bitterly over the proper role of the Chicago Police Department and how best to provide mental health care to Chicago residents. But they are in lockstep on this issue, an indication that this post-Roe versus Wade world is very much a whole new world.
So this measure also ratifies an executive order that was issued by the mayor back in July, but there's a significant difference here, Heather. What is it?
It will protect people seeking gender-affirming care. So people who are trans and live in states like Texas and Florida now have very limited ability to get the care that they need. And if they come to Chicago for it, they will be protected. The mayor's executive order, which she issued in July, did not have those provisions, but they are included in the measure that, as you said, the city council is expected to pass on September 21st.
All right, Heather Sharon, you'll be watching that vote for us. I know you'll let us know what happens. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandis.
And you can read Heather's story on our website, where you'll also find a link to the full proposal. It is all at WTTW.com/news. And now, Paris, back to you.
All right, thanks, Brandis. Arlington Heights may soon be exchanging horses for bears. As Chicago's NFL team looks to go northwest of the suburbs, one legacy may replace another. And because of that, we go back to Amanda Vinicky, who is in Arlington Heights for our Chicago Tonight in Your Neighborhood series, this time with a focus on Arlington Heights International Racecourse. Amanda.
Yeah, Paris, a year ago at about this time, you'd have horse trainers, jockeys, fans, and a staff of more than 300 dashing about Arlington Racecourse.
At this time of year, there would be a lot of hustle and bustle. We would have just finished the International Festival of Racing and hosting the Arlington Million and hosting guests from out of the country. So it is a lot different walking through here. It's kind of walking through a ghost town. You know, really, you can see the life has been sucked out of the facility.
In fact, betting windows and the cash drawers are empty, stables and barns vacant, and then weeds rather than flowers sprout in the winner's circle of the racetrack. Arlington's remaining staff is now of about 30, and they are maintaining that lavish grandstand that was built by then-owner Richard Duchessois after a fire in 1985. They say they don't want it to become an eyesore, and plus, while the plans released this week by the Bears envision knocking them down, the grandstand and administrative buildings may well serve as temporary executive offices for the Bears in the future. Arlington President Tony Petrillo says Arlington was one of the finest thoroughbred horse race tracks in the world and a mainstay that drew jockeys and trainers from across the globe. They've since, he says, scattered back to other countries and states. Did you ever think you'd see the day?
No, but you know what? It's something that, it's business, and, when you're involved in this industry for so many years, you've seen a lot of racetracks close, a lot of developments.
The property is so massive that Petrillo says from a shareholder's perspective, racing at Arlington just no longer makes sense. Now, Chicago, of course, is close proximity to the track, has contributed to Arlington's nearly century-long success. That, as well as the size of the property, is part of what is attracting the Bears. Arlington officials are pretty tight-lipped about what negotiations they're having with the football team, but the finance director of Arlington says he doesn't even know when the team might sign on the dotted line.
They do not let me know that. That is held very tight to the vest. And I'm not sure anybody knows. There's a lot to work through when you're buying a property this large, all the due diligence, all the work that has to go into making sure it is right.
Meanwhile, he and others that are still at the track are winding things down at Arlington, including restructuring the company and liquidating its assets with weekly auctions. Hundreds of pieces of Arlington memorabilia are up for sale online to the highest bidder right now, and they're going to be weekly through the end of the calendar year. That includes benches that are going for up to $1,000, as well as trophies and glassware.
There have been signs such as, we have Arlington alcohol policies around. We found one in the cooler. It's coated in plastic. It's an 8.5 by 11 sheet that explains our alcohol policy. I figured that would go for $1 or $2. It went for $350.
Kennedy says that this shows what Arlington meant to people and how much people want to literally have a piece of those memories to keep with them. The track means a lot to him, too. He says before he started working at the track, his family would often go to the races, and then his son, Jason, who is a singer, has actually also sang the national anthem at the track. Now, while the Bears have been cagey about saying that the sale is for sure a go, this auctioning off of merchandise is a clear sign that racing days at Arlington are done.
We've been racing on this site for 94 years. That is a long time, almost a century of racing. And I think what's getting lost in all of this is just how deep the history really is and how deep the roots are of Arlington in this community, and just how important it was to the community.
He says that if Arlington can't race horses, then Arlington Heights becoming home to the Chicago Bears, well, that is the next best thing. Still, there is a lot that is still uncertain. So maybe ripe for betting, you might say. There is still a slight chance that the deal could crumble, that the financing may fall apart. Mayor Lori Lightfoot has talked about the prospect of bringing a different NFL team to Chicago if the Bears move to the burbs. It's kind of like a saying that you can find at a 2-scale statue at Arlington that commemorates a famous by-the-nose race there from 1981, that a lot can happen against all odds. Now, we're going to be back coming up with a resident who, well, has some questions about all of the change coming to his hometown, but for now, we are sending it back to you.
Whole lot of history there, Amanda. All right, we'll look forward to that. And up next, we shift our focus from the Bears' move to their upcoming season. But first, we take a look at the weather. Amid all the chatter about Arlington Heights, the Bears actually have a football season they're getting ready for, and it kicks off this Sunday at their home for now, Soldier Field, against the San Francisco 49ers. And it's a season of radical change for the team, new head coach, new general manager, a ton of new players, and high hopes for second-year quarterback Justin Fields. And here with a preview of the season is former offensive lineman of the Chicago Bears from 1991 to 2002, James Big Cat Williams. Big Cat, it's awesome to see you as always. It's a great day. Football is finally back. Everything is new over there in Lake Forest for the Bears. New GM, new coach, a lot of new players. Justin Fields, year 2. What should fans expect from him this year?
Well, you want to see him grow. You want to see him get better. You want to see him make progressions from last year. He wasn't in an ideal situation last year, so you've got to hope that they put him in a situation to grow this year. You understand that there's not a lot of talent around him, or not a lot of big name talent around him, but you know, there are guys out there that can make plays for him.
And we're watching some clips here from his final preseason game against the Broncos. Everyone says, well, it's just preseason, but Fields looks spectacular. Is it okay to get a little excited?
Yeah, I think you have to get a little excited. You know, you're dealing with a fan base that has been without a superstar quarterback forever. So, you know, to see a young guy make progressions, to see him grow a little bit on the field, even though it's in the preseason, you know, it has to build up your hopes for what he can do and what the coaching staff can help him do during the regular season.
And you mentioned there aren't a whole lot of weapons around him. A lot of folks complain that the new general manager didn't draft a receiver higher or trade or get a free agent. But are you okay with the receiving core? Do you think it's going to be enough for him?
Well, I think the Bears are in a situation right now where they have to make progress as they go along. They weren't able to come in this year with a new coaching staff, a new GM, and just put a bunch of high-priced players on the field. They had to clear out a locker room that was full of players that, you know, they did not bring in. They wanted to fill it up with their type of players, and they're doing that. But that's going to take some time. It's going to take time to get everything coordinated in a sense that they can put the product on the field that they really want. They're just building up to it now.
And part of building is the offensive line. A lot of folks were worried that the Bears weren't going to have an offensive line that could protect Fields adequately, although it seems to have solidified throughout the preseason. What are your thoughts on the potential for the line?
Well, the line is, you know, you're looking at Braxton, who is the left tackle right now, young guy, 5th-round draft pick, and his first game he's got to go out and go up against the 49ers and Nick Bosa. You know, so once again, we get back to the coaching staff. Is the coaching staff going to be able to put a system in place for this first game to help out the offensive line as well as their young quarterback? Do they keep tight ends in? You know, we now have a couple fullbacks on the roster. Are those fullbacks going to be able to chip on their way out to get into the flats to help those tackles with the ends? Are they going to be able to solidify the interior of that offensive line so that people don't get pushed back into Fields' lap? And if they're able to do that, we should see some great improvement from not only the offensive line, but from Fields.
Plus the play calling, it seems like there'll be more rollouts, bootlegs, play action, as opposed to last year where Fields was just a sitting duck there, especially during that Cleveland game. On the defensive side of the ball, they're shifting to a 4-3 defense, more of the kind that they played under Lovie Smith. What are your expectations for the defense?
Well, I expect the defense to fly around. I mean, you know, when your head coach is a defensive-minded guy, a lot of his attention is focused on what the defense does and how they do it. So you're talking about a defense that typically is built strong right up the middle. You usually have an outstanding 3 technique or nose guard, an outstanding Mike linebacker, an outstanding safety, And, we just don't know what the Bears have at those positions yet. So as the season goes on, we'll figure out, who are the go-to guys on that defense, who are the guys that are going to be able to make big plays, whether it be up front or in the secondary. And once we figure that out, I think we'll start to see that defense gel and take shape and take form.
A lot of unknowns, and the Bears are going up in their home opener against a team that a lot of folks consider playoff caliber, San Francisco. What do you expect to happen in this game?
It's going to be a tough game for the Bears. When you talk about a Shanahan offense that's going to come in here and, they're going to have the Bears defense on their heels because they're going to give them a lot of different looks, but those looks are going to look like a lot of different things. So the defense is going to have to they're going to have to focus on their assignments, be very clear about where they're supposed to be and when they're supposed to be there, and they're going to have to hustle. They're going to have to be all over that field because, outside zone, boot, all those things that we want the Bears to run, San Francisco runs, and they run them well.
Yeah, a good team. So, the national pundits are really dogging the Bears this year, saying they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. They don't expect much of anything. What do you think a realistic prediction is in terms of their record this year?
Well, I mean, if the Bears come out of this season and they're 8-9 or 9-8, as long as the team has gotten better, has progressed along as the season goes along, I'm okay with that. You can't be a team that comes out here and goes, only gets 4 wins and you don't see any progression out of your young quarterback. You don't see your offensive line getting any better. You don't see the pass rush from your defense getting any better or the blitzes. These are the things that I'm looking for. So, if they can go 8-9 and everyone gets better, knowing that they're going to bring more and better people in next year, I'll be excited about it.
Yeah, given the circumstances, I think Bears fans will be pretty happy with 8-9 this year. But as you said, it's all about Justin Fields taking that leap, and he certainly looked good in the preseason. James Big Cat Williams, thank you so much. It's always great to see you again.
Thanks, Paris. Good talking to you, man.
All right, you too. And now, Brandis, we toss it back to you.
Paris, thank you. Now we go back to Arlington Heights, where Amanda Finicky spent the day as part of our In Your Neighborhood series. Amanda.
Yeah, Brandis, wanted to give you a little bit of an update about what has been heard by the approximately 800 people at attendance at this community meeting thus far. They heard that this is not for sure a deal, with the Bears chairman, CEO, present on a stage saying that they're unsure if they're going to close. And even if they do close on the Arlington Racecourse property, that doesn't necessarily mean that the Bears are committed to developing it into this stadium, but they certainly are eager to do so. They say so that they'll be able to compete for events like the Super Bowl, which the team says they cannot do now. A decision could be made by late this year, they say, or early in 2023. Now, joining me to talk about it is one of the Arlington Heights residents who was listening to all of this. Martin Bauer, thanks so much for being there. Now, even going in, you had some concerns. Share with us what those were.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. My concerns, quite simply, are how the financing is going to happen for this project. On the one hand, this sounds like an exciting project. No doubt, the prospect of having the Bears in Arlington Heights is exciting to a lot of the residents, to a lot of my friends. On the other hand, we also know that a lot of these deals where public financing is needed to make a project happen, they tend to go sour. They tend to increase property taxes, and I am very concerned what that impact might be on my and my fellow citizens' taxes.
You don't buy the argument that instead this is going to bring so many patrons and people to Arlington Heights that instead, well, maybe your property taxes not go down, but at least hold steady.
I don't know about that. The calculations will always be optimistic, no doubt. What's being presented will always be optimistic. Reality just does not quite agree with that. And so the concern remains, and I'm concerned that officials are a little bit too eager to promise dollars. And quite honestly, what I heard here from George McCaskey was already a statement of, if the public does not make some money available, this project will not move forward. In my mind, it's a multi-billion-dollar corporation, a business. If they can't afford to make something happen that's positive for the community, which we are all in favor of, maybe it's not the best plan after all.
So I was going to ask, you sort of answered it, but just in case there's more, did anything that you heard tonight change your mind or give you reason to be optimistic, wanting this project to come here, even if you might have to pay some extra in taxes?
Well, I don't think I'm willing to pay a little extra unless the little is really a little. Look, what I heard sounds exciting. The plan sounds exciting, the prospect sounds exciting, the architectural renderings sound great. I left right in the middle of the architect's presentation. But again, there's a price tag associated with it, and I just don't believe that the public should be footing the bill.
Well, we will let you get back in there to continue to learn about what the Bears may have in store. Once again, that is Martin Bauer. Thanks so much for joining us. And back to you in the studio.
Amanda, thank you. A lot for residents there to think about. Up next, a tour of one of Chicago's newest music venues. But first, a look at some events happening this weekend.
As far as Chicago icons go, it's not the Water Tower or the Merchandise Mart, but the Morton Salt Shed is familiar to anyone who has seen it just off the Kennedy Expressway on the near north side. And now it's home to the city's newest concert venue, appropriately called the Salt Shed. Producer Mark Vitale recently toured the newly reimagined building on its opening day, and here's another look.
Along Elston Avenue, the familiar rooftop sign is back with a fresh coat of paint. Inside, photographs detail the rebuilding and painting process on the structure built in 1929. But the real attraction is the new outdoor concert venue on a 4-acre site along the Chicago River across from Goose Island. We spoke with one of the key players behind the ambitious project.
I've been driving by this all my life, you know, and when we had the opportunity to take a look at this, we kind of came up with the idea of maybe we can repurpose this into a venue. We started about 3 years ago, been working in earnest for about the last 2 years. Took us almost a year to just clear the place out and get the structure, you know, safe and true. And for the last year, we've kind of been putting it all back together.
We visited while drummer Micaiah McRaven and his band checked the sound for their opening night performance. Upcoming performers include Fleet Foxes, Mountjoy, and Andrew Bird. In the new year, there will be an indoor venue on site as well, with capacity of up to 3,600 people. Outdoors, there's a kind of fairground atmosphere with shops and bars along the midway. And they've kept many of the details that make the site unique.
Well, we tried to keep as much of the, call them relics, as we could. So behind me is the old conveyor belt that used to bring the salt in off of the river and then into the sheds. And then all the structure and the walls, more of an archaeological viewing of what's happened here and a little bit of a history of the property.
One thing the workers encountered a lot of, salt.
We do get a lot of salt here. You know, I think we got most of it out, but it even seeps through the floors. It's an iconic structure. It's a wonderful part of Chicago, and it's been really a great opportunity for us to convert it into something that has more of an appropriate use in today's world.
For Chicago Tonight, this is Mark Vitale.
And by the way, the partners behind the Salt Shed also run the Promontory in Hyde Park, Thalia Hall in Pilsen, and Space in Evanston, among many other venues in the area. And they stress that the Salt Shed is an all-ages venue. We should note the concerts mentioned in the story have already passed, because they sounded like a lot of fun. But you can find out more about other upcoming concerts at the Salt Shed on our website. And we're back to wrap things up right after this.
Don't ever miss Chicago Tonight. Subscribe to our podcast. Get a daily download of our show delivered to your desktop or mobile device. Go to WTTW.com/Chicago Tonight Podcast and subscribe.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
And that's our show for this Thursday night. Don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing. And you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news.
You can also get the show via podcast and the PBS video app. And please join us tomorrow night at 7 for the Week in Review. And up next, to commemorate the death of Queen Elizabeth II, PBS NewsHour presents Queen Elizabeth, A Royal Life. The special explores the Queen's life, legacy, her influence within the royal family, across the United Kingdom, and around the world. Again, that is next on WTTW. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman.
And I'm Paris Schutz. Thank you so much for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a great evening.